Love triangles have always annoyed me. The concept seems simple enough, right? There is love between three people and that forms a triangle, a love triangle. But they have always annoyed me because I believe that they're a bad way to illustrate what they are most often trying to describe. The idea of a love triangle is very attractive to writers because it comes with embedded drama and conflict. They are seen all throughout entertainment. If I asked you to think of film and TV's most popular love triangles, who would you think about? My guesses would be Bella, Edward, and Jacob in Twilight, or Kerry, Big, and Aiden in Sex and the City. But often these love triangles are mostly cockfights, where two guys are vying over one girl. They aren't true triangles. If we see the triangle as being about three characters who all share a love for each other, then a true love triangle should always involve at least one queer character, right? I understand and accept that the definition of a love triangle has evolved over time to include these cockfights, which, to me, appear to be more of a love arrow than a love triangle. But this is why I was so excited to see Luca Guadagnino's Challengers. Having seen the trailer, I had gathered, as had many others, that this saucy tennis film was potentially going to be queer. To what degree was, of course, obfuscated in the trailer, but it was definitely implied. Them magazine published an article back in February of 2024 speculating on how gay challengers might actually be, but they weren't able to land on a conclusive estimate from the trailer alone. So after seeing the film, did I believe that Challengers portrayed a true love triangle? This would mean, by the guide of my own definition, that there existed one or more queer characters in the film. Xtra magazine writer Kerensa Cadenas went as far as to declare it as the bisexual film of the year. But is it really a bisexual film? And who really cares? Let's explore it. Before taking a look at Challengers, I want to unpack bisexuality as a term, as it is a complicated sexual orientation to define due to the fluidity of its nature and the complex culture in which an individual's sexuality is formed. The American Psychological Association says that it falls along a continuum, meaning that it's not a cut and dry attraction to both males and females equally. Some use bisexuality interchangeably with pansexuality. However, pansexuality is explicit with its rejection of the gender binary, whereas bisexuality has it right there in the name. Robin Ox, a bisexual activist, is inclusive of the gender spectrum, with her definition stating bisexuality as the potential to be attracted, romantically and or sexually, to people of more than one sex and or gender, not necessarily at the same time, not necessarily in the same way, and not necessarily to the same degree. A definition which is cited on the Trevor Project's website as being a popular definition of bisexuality, and the one I will use when thinking about Challengers.
Hey, come hang out with us later.
Want me to come tuck you in?
No, we can just keep talking.
Challengers is directed by Guadagnino, written by Justin Kuritzkis, and stars Zendaya, Josh O'Connor, and Mike Faist. It was released in 2024, was distributed by Amazon MGM Studios, and runs for 131 minutes. The plot synopsis from Google is as follows. Tashi, a tennis player turned coach played by Zendaya, has transformed her husband, Art, played by Faist, from a mediocre player into a world-famous Grand Slam champion. To jolt him out of his recent losing streak, she makes him play a challenger event, close to the lowest level of tournament on the Pro Tour. Tensions soon run on high when he finds himself standing across the net from the once promising, now burnt-out Patrick, played by O'Connor, his former best friend, doubles partner, and Tashi's ex-boyfriend. The leading press image that has been plastered around the internet is of the three stars of the film sitting on the edge of two beds pressed together, Zendaya in the middle, flanked by Faist and O'Connor. While this image certainly captures one's attention and perhaps thematically represents what the film is about, three peak athletes and their entangled relationships with each other, it ultimately misleads the audience into thinking the film might be something that it's not. Film critic and journalist Helen O'Hara on the Empire Magazine podcast expressed this about the Challenger's trailer.
I want to be clear initially, this has the single most misleading trailer I have seen in years. This trailer gives you no idea of what the film you're about to see is.
The film is ultimately about desire and a passion for one's sport. Guadagnino often has desire at the heart of his films, he himself labeling I Am Love, A Bigger Splash, and Call Me By Your Name as his desire trilogy. But desire is certainly present in Bones and All, and we see it here again in Challengers. For a full rundown on what Challengers is really trying to tell us, I would recommend heading over to The Take, where they look at how the film explores desire and power. But here, I wanted to look at those two questions I asked earlier on. Starting with the second question. Really, what is the point in analyzing the film and understanding whether its characters are bisexual or not? Especially when the film itself isn't focused on exploring the bisexuality of these characters. I believe that there is an appetite for queer characters in film, whether the movies themselves deliver them or not. This is when we get the phenomenon of queer coding. Queer coding is the practice of applying stereotypical queer traits to characters without explicitly stating the gender or sexuality of the character. This can come from the creators who, for various reasons, may not be explicit with the character's identity, or from the audience who retroactively understand the character to being queer, whether the creators intended it or not. Before the film was even released, multiple news outlets, particularly queer ones, were speculating on the queerness of the characters and plot. In an interview, Guadagnino was asked explicitly whether the film was queer, to which he politically replied by saying, "It's me, so..." He clearly doesn't want to give a definitive answer on the topic, most likely due to the film not being primarily about the character's sexuality, but also in keeping the film open and available to a wider audience. But I think if the characters Art and or Patrick are bisexual, then the film should be highlighting its bisexuality, largely due to the ongoing trend of bisexual erasure. Bisexual erasure, or bi-erasure, is defined in the Encyclopedia of Women in Today's World as a tendency to omit bisexuality from history, the media, and other discourses, which extends out into a straightforward denial of its existence. There are many different forms of bi-erasure, including the common idea that the individual will eventually settle to one side, either heterosexual or homosexual.
I'm not even sure bisexuality exists. I think it's just a layover on the way to Gay Town.
Which studies on the subject have not found to be true. Lisa Diamond, a professor of psychology at the University of Utah, found in her research that almost as many men transition at some point from a gay identity to a bisexual, queer, or unlabeled one, as did from a bisexual identity to a gay identity. Kenji Yoshino, a legal scholar and Chief Justice Earl Warren Professor of Constitutional Law at NYU School of Law, wrote an article titled "The Epistemic Contract of Bisexual Erasure," where Yoshino endeavors to find out why bi-erasure occurs. For Yoshino, this was within the context of contemporary American political and legal discourse. However, his understanding can branch out into the realm of media and entertainment. Yoshino found three motivations behind bi-erasure: to stabilize sexual orientation, to stabilize gender, and to stabilize monogamy. Yoshino argued that bisexuality threatens the foundation of these three major institutions that make up our social society. Bisexuality challenges sexual orientation by making it impossible to identify as rigidly monosexual, that is to say, straight or homosexual. In a world that recognizes bisexuals, a would-be heterosexual must show 1. That they are not gay, and 2. That they are not bisexual. Note that homosexuality can also be used in this hypothetical. In order to complete step 1, the heterosexual would need to prove that they are not gay by showing cross-sex desire. To complete step 2, the heterosexual would need to prove the absence of same-sex desire. But this is impossible to do, as it is impossible to prove a negative. No amount of cross-sex desire would be able to complete step 2. So once bisexuality is acknowledged, it is not only harder but logically impossible to prove one's heterosexuality or homosexuality. So in order to maintain the regime of straightness and gayness, bisexual existence must be erased. Bisexuality challenges the gender binary by denying its necessity. This is something, as mentioned earlier, that is better encapsulated through pansexuality, but has grown to involve bisexuality as well. Monosexuals define their orientation identities according to their specific attraction to one gender, but not the other. An individual's orientation can be affected not only by challenging the fixity of their orientation, but also by challenging the fixity of the sex of their object choice. Without a clear and privileged distinction between man and woman, there is no clear and privileged distinction between straight and gay. Bisexuality challenges monogamy by raising deep issues surrounding sexual jealousy and excess. To be bi is to be doubled. To be mono is to be one.
It's not hot, it's greedy. He's double dipping.
At its most basic level, the straight man is threatened by his female partner's bisexuality because he must compete not only with other men, but also with other women. It is not that one's bisexual partner can leave you for twice as many people, but that she can leave you for a different kind of person. The anxiety is aroused not by rivals who might also offer what you possess, but by rivals who might offer what you do not possess. The work that Yoshino established was to give reasons as to why bisexuality was not acknowledged for real human beings in the eyes of the law, not fictional characters in a film about tennis. But I believe that it helps us understand why there is a persistent theme in our media, which is supposed to reflect our culture, of denying characters their bisexuality. If Patrick and/or Art are bisexual, then it should be celebrated. I don't need this to be through explicit actions, but through the eye of the director and in the delivery of the actors. And I thought that what I was seeing while watching Challengers was truly a film featuring bisexual characters, until another thought crossed my mind. What if Patrick and Art are just really good friends?
Hi. Hey.
Straight male friends should be allowed to be close, straight, and friends together. That's a bit of a clunky sentence, but it gets across the clunky feelings I have towards it. As much as I would love to run away with the thought that Patrick and Art are bisexual lovers, I also support the idea that men can share this incredibly close, sexually charged friendship with one another and have it not be queer. With toxic masculinity being as prevalent as it is in straight male culture, it is important that we recognize that men can be close to one another, and indeed even love each other, without there being any sexual desire for one another. It is a practice that is accepted for female friendships, but often rejected for male ones. The thought of a man having an intense platonic love for another man is so against masculinity ideals that the word bromance was adapted to describe the exceptionally tight and affectionate relationship while still asserting their heterosexuality. While the term has faced some criticism for being at best superfluous and at worst homophobic, I see it as a symptom of the larger fault of how society treats and portrays close male bonding, and not as something that is inherently bad itself. So then, volleying back to Challengers, keeping all of this information in mind, I personally do see Patrick and Art sharing an intense romantic friendship that escalates beyond platonic actions. Is it a bisexual romance or a platonic romance? I'm going to have to cop out and say that it's both. A Schrodinger's cat sort of scenario. Having Patrick and Art actually be romantically entangled with each other is the more exciting choice, but is one that the audience must come to on their own, since aside from some suggestive food-eating scenes, it isn't spoon-fed to the audience. But all in all, there is a true love triangle at play in Challengers, as we see the true love that Patrick and Art harbor for one another. The film just isn't interested in the sexual details of that relationship. It isn't interested in any of the sexual details of any of the relationships, in fact, as there aren't any sex scenes in the film at all between any characters. While I do not believe the film is explicit enough to be characterized as the bisexual film of the year, I do not shame Cadenas for gifting it this title, purely due to the fact that there aren't that many bisexual films released every year. If you are interested in watching a film that is explicit with its exploration of a true love triangle and bisexual character, I would recommend watching Ira Sachs' 2023 film Passages. And if you're interested in watching an intense film that delves deep into the psyche and dedication required of athletes to play and compete in the world of tennis, then Challenges is definitely a grand slam.